capacity is changing. The human brain, if you look at it, comparing it to Australopithecus or Homo erectus, some of the earlier species, our brain case has grown 40, 50, 60% in some cases, which means that there's more brain that's active, and we're using more brain capacity. So it's not just frontal lobe or prefrontal activity, it's the entire brain that's more active.
Oh, yeah. All right. We have this question coming on the live chat. Doctor, are you a Catholic?
Am I a Catholic? No, I'm not. I'm not a Catholic.
We have this other quick question for you. What part of the hospital do you see these entities most? Are they all over, or are there specific sections, say, the morgue?
Well, they're all over, but the part that I see in the densest population is the delivery units.
Really?
When you look at OB and delivery units, it's just swamped.
It's swamped. I mean, they like bump into each other?
Well, there's a lot of reasons for it, and I've done some research on that. In Shinto and ancient Taoist traditions, they didn't allow a priest or someone working in a holy capacity to go into a delivery unit or to even be around a place where a child had been delivered for at least a month after the entity or after the child had been delivered, because their teaching was that there are a lot of entities that surround the birth of a child that are negative, that try to take that child's life or to try to influence his life.
Yeah.
So in their teaching, they believe that the birth experience is fraught with a lot of negative energy just by its general nature. And so when I look at the birth units and the delivery units, I do see entities of a lot of different kinds, unfortunately.
Dr. Gibson, when you saw the first entity, did you pinch yourself? Did you slap yourself? Did you wonder if you were drunk? Or what was your very first reaction?
Well, the first entity that I saw, I didn't know it was an entity. See, sometimes when I see entities, they look just like you and me. They don't look any different. They're just like regular people. But the way that you know that they're an entity is, one, they don't have a shadow, and they can usually do things physically that living humans can't. They can walk through walls. They'll disappear. Their gradient density to light will change. They'll go from being very solid to being very kind of ghostly looking. But the first one that I saw that I remember seeing clearly looked just like a normal person until he walked through the wall, and then I realized that's not a normal person.
That's when it hit you. You struggled with it, and you said, well, okay, yeah, walking through the wall, this is kind of weird. That had to be it, right?
I was on call, and I had been up for a long time. It was about maybe 2:30 or 3 o'clock in the morning.
Okay, 2:30.
I thought to myself, okay, it's late.
Yeah.
You're tired.
Right.
You've been up a while. And maybe you just made that up. But then I realized he walked through the wall. There's no other way for that human being to get out of that room. And so I sat down, and I got myself a nice, cool cup of water, and I just thought about it for about a half hour. And then, fortunately, my beeper didn't go off. I didn't have to move anywhere. And I wrestled with myself. I thought, either you made that up or you saw a ghost. So let's figure out which one that is. And for a half hour, I tried to explain it away, but it just would not go away. And the thing that really made it click is I thought, well, why now? Why not yesterday? Or why not 30 minutes ago? Why that particular person? And then I realized, it's not possible to make up everything that you see. That could be just as delusional as pretending that you didn't see it.
Well, I suppose that nothing in your educational background prepared you for seeing somebody walking through a wall. They didn't tell you that at the university or college level, did they?
No.
What to do? What to do when people start walking through walls?
Not at all.
Is that, or they could have said, if you see that, take your plaques off the wall and report. Report to the psycho ward.
That is absolutely true.
Report to the psycho ward.
Oddly enough, though, during the last 10 years of Sigmund Freud's life, he wrote very extensively about the paranormal and metaphysics and death and spiritual entities. He wrote quite a bit about that.
Herr Sigmund Freud, eh? Well, it's interesting. Yeah. You mentioned about the children, and it seems to me that cats is sort of have like a lure to them of trying to suck the breath out of a child to kill it. But I'm just wondering, maybe those cats are really these entities. So is it possible that these entities could transform into an animal form?
I haven't seen that. but I've read about that. I haven't seen that.
Yeah, I'd like to be seeing that one.
That.
And then another thing, you mentioned no shadow. That sure sounds like a vampire to me.
Well, around the time that a person leaves their body and goes through the death state, the shadow becomes thinner and thinner. And ultimately, at the moment of death, the shadow changes. And so that the shadow really isn't very visible. When a person enters into the ghost form, you really can't see the shadow because the entity at that point is a two-dimensional entity. And a shadow is a reflection of the dimensional form that the person is presenting in. So a three-dimensional person will create a two-dimensional shadow, a flat image that appears on the ground. Well, a two-dimensional image is only going to make a one-dimensional shadow, which is a point or a line, and that may not be visible at all.
Right.
And that's what I've seen.
Well, I guess when somebody says, I think it was a commercial or something, they said the shadow knows, I guess the shadow really does know because the shadow is somebody. We have this question in from the Fast Blast, Doctor. Have you heard of someone called Maitreya and his day of declaration?
I have heard the Maitreya. I have heard of quite a lot of things that have been written about the Maitreya and things that the Maitreya supposedly said. There's a lot of controversy about that. I have heard of them, to answer the question. All
right. And I remember we had one guest on the show. It was a priest who said that the Antichrist visited him, but he came right through the wall. So it looks like there's a lot of people going through the walls these days.
Well, dimensional reality is not exactly what people will say that it is. But in quantum physics, atoms go through walls all the time. Atoms are in two places at one time. So atoms can do exactly what we think they can do, but this is not just something that people make up. This is reality.
And have any of these entities ever got angry with you because you're exposing them, or just because they don't like you particularly, or anything? I mean, have you been able to communicate with them?
I talk with entities and demonstrate it in public with people that I can see entities. And occasionally, I would say, well, if you look at the number of experiences that I've had, 9 times out of 10, the entity is surprised that you can see them at all because they're used to people ignoring them. They're used to people not seeing them and acting as though they're not there. But of the 10% of the times that they are seen, I'd say about maybe 1 time out of 3 they get upset or they have a bone to pick about something that happened to them. Usually it's related more to how they died than to me discovering them. The emotional state that a person has when they leave the world has a lot to do with how they present when you discover them.
Okay. So if someone is say a criminal and say is shot, he would die, he would be angry, and is that basically it? And then if somebody died that was someone who helped the poor, some good soul. And by the way, are these good and bad souls? Or is there no difference?
Well, they're just people. I mean, they're people like you would meet on the street, people like you would meet anywhere. But the way that they die has more to do with, say, if a person commits suicide or is murdered and the murder is unsolved, or they die in a situation where they leave something unfinished.
Well,
those are the situations where they become upset most commonly.
Okay. Well, just earlier, as we begin the chat here, you said that, say, if someone who died smoked, they would, I guess, maybe have a craving for a smoke, I suppose. But based on something of that line of thinking, if someone committed suicide, then they find they're still walking around, would they try to kill themselves again? And therefore, if they kill themselves again, would they come back to life? 2 negatives equal positive.
Well, I talked with a man who had killed himself. He had attached himself to a client of mine who was a paramedic. And the paramedic had visited New Orleans, and he had walked along a bridge that the man had killed himself, and the man was looking for some